while we were watching it, you were like, get your dick away from Data.
He just walks over and dominates Data's position. Just like, yeah, you might be an android, but I'm the real peak of evolution here, my friend. Captain's Pod, Stardate 133084.1. Welcome aboard the Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shore leave from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me as always, she's fresh out of the brig after shooting her shipmate with an arrow. It's Ambassador Deneé.
Which, honestly, it wasn't fatal, so I don't know why I was brigged.
No, yes, we definitely brigged you. To be fair, he was standing downrange as well, as we said last week. It's completely his fault for getting in the way of your arrow.
If not completely, at least
Yeah.
They should be in the brigged too. They should be brigged.
Brigadier?
Briggadocious.
Brigadilicious. About to brigalicious for you. But anyway, how are you doing, Ambassador? Bail on that.
Man, I'm doing good because this is a week of Star Trek. For those of you that just listened to the podcast, you don't know that anything happened, but we, unless you put it in the outtakes and stuff.
What are we talking about?
That we had a live show shenanigans last week.
Oh yeah, no, I put that in the outtakes. I explained the internet kerfufflery, and this is technically the second episode that we're recording this week.
Yeah, so this is like Star Trek week. Plus, we are compiling some more Star Trek stuff for work too. More on that if you watch our channels. And so it just feels very Trekky.
It's a very Trekky week.
Which makes me happy.
It is taking everything within me to not skip every segment, even the outtakes, everything, interacting with the live show and just getting to the episode and telling you how much I love it. I am giddy to get into this. I am so excited. I love this episode so much.
You have told me this is your favorite.
It is. And the more I was doing some research into it today, most of it I already knew, but I was like, no, I really do love this episode for many reasons. But before we get into it, let's do an email.
Oh, what if I hate it?
I don't care.
Good.
Doesn't matter. Good. Doesn't matter. I will fight you.
What do you mean you fight me?
Okay, hailing frequencies open, everyone. It's time for us to answer your emails from
Twitter,
Discord, Twitter,
X,
and
email. Yeah, that's not all of them. It was
all of them. Yeah. Anyway, so this week we have another audio message. This is from Commander Smith.
Incoming transmission.
Greetings, Captain, Ambassador. This is Commander Smith. I hope everything is fine on the USS Enterprise.
Okay, you have to pause.
Uh-huh.
I'm getting Spock voice.
Ethan Peck or Leonard Nimoy?
I don't know.
TOS or Strange New Worlds?
I think TOS-ish. Do you hear it?
I've listened to this message already, and I do get what you mean. There is a very stoic delivery. Yes.
Yeah, he has like a tone. There's a tone to his voice that's very Spock-ish. So anyway, in my imagination, you're Vulcan. Go on.
That's going to happen even more. Okay.
I have some compelling examples of time travel stories that you should consider for your next season of Captain's Pod.
So,
you hear it?
Yeah, no, I hear it. It's very like Captain's Pod.
It's got the deep tenor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So Nick actually sent in some suggestions for the unconventional romance episodes, and like many people, also suggested some additional themes that we should go through, and also suggested that we did time travel.
Ooh. Did this person Nick also add in some sounds to make it sound like we're on the bridge?
Nick did some.
Good. Okay,
Nick
sorry. Go ahead.
Audio design.
That's awesome.
So there's two different types of stories here. The first set are what I call temporal wake episodes, where we see changes in the past ripple forward to the future. And our primary crew sees things happening around them, and they are shielded from these changes in a temporal wake. For example, they see the Enterprise is missing and the Federation's gone, but they're still there. The second is what I call the It Has Always Happened type episodes, where we find out there's been some time travel shenanigans, but it's always been part of the timeline. We just didn't know about it. So, temporal wake episodes are some of my favorites. One of the first episodes is actually a great two-parter from Deep Space Nine. Now, given the Ambassador's reluctance to embrace all of the characters in that show, this may be a bit painful.
The subtle shade.
That was so good.
That was such a very Spock way of diagnosing you.
I'm telling you right now, this is our Spock right now. I mean, we're gonna have many Spocks, I'm sure. If we start getting more audio, I'm gonna be hearing different characters. It's just how my brain works. But that was like, that was such a perfect way to not discount my feelings,
but also kind of discount them.
But it's a great temporal wake episode, and it's an interesting Star Trek episode because it deals with social issues and the technological MacGuffin to get us there. The next one that has to go in consideration is Yesterday's Enterprise. Yesterday's Enterprise shows us this same alternate future that happens where we as the audience know there's something wrong, but the crew doesn't. Typically in these stories, the main crew is the one that tries to go and restore the timeline, but in this case, we have the alternate crew doing something to try and restore the timeline. So it's an interesting inversion of that storytelling device. But regardless of the episodes you pick, you really should cap off this season with a rewatch of First Contact, which has one of the best temporal wake visuals in the entire franchise when we see the Earth assimilated by the Borg in the first 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and look at the second type of time travel stories, the this has always happened type of stories. There are a lot of good ones here to choose from, like Future's End from Voyager, where we see the crew go back in time to the 1990s, which was a very bold choice for a show shot in the 1990s. We also have Tomorrow is Yesterday, or Assignment Earth from the original series. One of my favorites, which is just kind of a silly episode, is Little Green Men from Deep Space Nine. You've already done a few of these episodes, such as Those Old Scientists from Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks, as well as The Trouble with Tribbles. The best in this category, however, is of course the two-parter Time's Arrow from The Next Generation. Now, without spoiling it too much for the ambassador or the audience, we will get some revelations about Data's age and the origin of the Mark Twain reference in Lower Decks. So those are the episodes that I think should be covered in this season of the podcast. Well, by the sounds of it, I need to report to battle stations. This is Commander Smith signing off. Live long in Podsper.
Oh, what is happening on the ship? Oh no!
Oh,
is he on our
we
ship?
never find out.
Is he on our ship?
He's on a different ship. We don't know.
We gotta go help.
I've been trying to contact him, and
Get over there! Push the buttons, Captain. We gotta go help.
I pressed all of the buttons, and I found out that he was actually messaging from the future. So we're just going to have to wait until we catch up with his ship.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of you say when we announced the time travel topic or theme for this season, a lot of you sent in, and I love this so much. When you say time travel, Captain, what exactly do you mean? And then a list of what qualifies as time travel. And I love that so much. And that, I think, inadvertently nailed down why I love time travel episodes so much. Because it's not that I'm obsessed with them going back to the 90s or the 60s or whatever. It's the time loopiness and the time shenanigans and the weird stuff like time dilation and things like that I really enjoy. So yeah, Nick, thank you very much for that summary of like kind of the different types of time travel and your recommendations. And yeah, keep your audio and emails coming. It's at CaptainsPodCS on X/Twitter, CaptainsPod@CinemaSins.com. And you can also recommend episodes on the Discord, discord.gg/CinemaSins. Okay, Ambassador, can we do it? Wait, no, predictions. Give me your... So, this week's episode is Cause and Effect, Season 5, Episode 18. Predictions for the episode. Other than, it's time travel.
Okay. I'm going to predict that Data's head is flapped open and some information is given to him to go back in time to save the day. That's right, everybody. I have already seen this episode.
Oh, have we watched it together?
Yeah.
Oh, we have.
So,
oh no.
It was one of those things where you're like, okay, let's watch something. We were all hanging out and you're like, let's watch my favorite episode of Star Trek. And I was like, okay. So then we turned it on and it is so good. And I love it.
Oh, amazing.
So
I remember now. I remember this shit. That was like
3
years ago.
It was a long
2 years
time
ago? 2.5 years. It was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Are you excited to watch this episode again? This is the first time I think going in that you'll have seen the episode before.
Maybe, or if it has happened before, it was like an echo of my from a long time ago. I don't remember us watching an episode that I was certain that I'd seen so far. This one I know I have seen, And I am excited to talk about it because I am excited to watch it again, having watched it in the last few years.
It benefits being rewatched.
Does it?
Yeah, 100. Yeah.
Well, for you, you're gonna watch them all a whole bunch. For me, I'm a different person, so I don't know. I am curious. I'm curious how I'll absorb it the second time around.
Okay, well, with that, let's just get over to the holodeck and watch the episode. We'll see you all in 10 Forward for a very detailed debrief. Do to me well. Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab a drink from the replicator and share our immediate thoughts and feelings on the episode we just watched. To get the most important question first, Ambassador, what is your thing of choice from the replicator?
I want Aunt Adele's nutmeg milk.
Yay. Oh, that's gross. Don't say it like that.
What do you mean don't say it like that? That's what it was.
Gross. It's nutmeg milk made by Aunt Adele. It's not Aunt Adele's nutmeg milk.
It is.
It's not.
It is.
Yeah, okay.
Like if you title a recipe that you've created, it becomes like Deneé's cookies. Like Deneé's chocolate chip cookie.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I would like a deck of cards stacked by data, please. Because I think he's a great shuffler.
We should not always do food or beverage.
No, you can do whatever you want. I was going to have like a Dekion field or there's another thing that is like a positron parameter, something like that. Anyway, Ambassador, give us a synopsis.
Oh my God. In today's episode, we watch the same episode over and over and over and over. And then again, are you excited to watch the same thing happen?
Yes.
Probably not.
No, I am.
But, ooh, there's a mystery. And also camera angles.
Yes.
And with
Weird
those
ones.
powers combined and a lot of conversation about science-y sci-fi stuff, you should love this episode 3 times at least. You get it? 3? You see it in there?
I think it. Oh, because of the number. The pips. Got it. Yeah.
Ping,
Good
ping.
one. Good one. Good one. Yep.
Yeah.
Ping, ping.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Ambassador, thoughts and feelings on. Have you finished your synopsis?
Yeah, I think so.
Overall, thoughts and feelings on the best episode of Star Trek ever.
Okay, so the pressure is high because you love this episode.
So much.
This is my second time watching it, and I have to say, on the second watch, I think I loved it even more.
Yes, and I love the irony. I love the irony of that. The more you watch it, the better it gets. Even though it's just the same thing, and that's the whole point of the thing. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, listen, is there any more epic of a start to a show of specifically? Nope. We'll just say TNG. Is there ever more of an epic start than this one?
It's so good. Best this is what defined cold opens for me. This is when I understood. Oh, that's why you do a bit before the credits and then get into the story. Like, it is what cold opens are designed for. It's so fucking good. You have no time to catch your breath.
So good. And you think, of course, that you're going to watch some sort of, dramatic moment, and then you're going to see them recover, and then whatever, the episode continues. You do not expect the ship to explode.
No, you do not.
And then it's just like, da, 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 da. You're like, no, what just, wow.
That theme was made for like dramatic endings because it stamps on them so quickly. And there's so many ways you could play this. You could wait. You could blow the Enterprise up 15 minutes into the episode and make it a big thing. This is just immediately. Then the cell is flashing. The fucking place is on fire. And just the sound design and the music of like the alarms that are going off and the beep, 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 beep. And it just flies off into the distance and then blows up and then it's like, what's going on? It's so good, and it doesn't let up. As soon as it comes back from the credits, it's just like Captain's log. The Enterprise has been scanning the Typhon expanse. It's just so much whiplash. It
really is. It's a lot to process as you go to the theme song.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how TV shows would have aired this live. I don't remember. I'm guessing that when you would sit down to watch a show, you had the cold open, then you had the credits and then, or the opening, montage, and then you'd have like a little bit of the show and then the first commercial.
Yeah, it varied based on how long the cold open was. I think in this case they would have had a little bit of the show, but sometimes the cold opens are quite long. But people were literally calling the broadcasters and writing it, and so I don't know if they were, but it was like in the moment they were calling saying there's something wrong with your broadcast. It's going back to the beginning of the episode.
It cut to commercial. Yeah.
Or it started in the middle of the episode.
Yeah. You have 5 minutes of commercial to panic and call your local broadcaster.
Yep. Call your local station and just go, what are you doing?
Because imagine that kind of like confusion, because it does look like the end of something or the end of a season or something. So anyways, there's to just succinctly kind of put my thoughts together. I really, really enjoyed this. And there's a lot of reasons for it, because I think that this episode does a very brave bit of storytelling where it completely goes all in. It's a poker reference. I didn't mean to do that on purpose.
Yeah, it does.
On retelling the same thing, I think 4 times. I think we watched this 4 times. It might even be 5.
I think it's 5. I think it's 5 including...
There's the cold open, and then I think it's... Yeah. Okay.
And then it's the poker, and then it's calling the bluff, and then it's Riker backing out. Then it's all of the... It might be 6, actually.
Yeah.
It's 5 or 6, something like that. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And so... I think it's an interesting thing to think, like, you've got the writers around the table and the producers and everyone who's putting this together going, how can we make this an interesting episode and not just feel really repetitive? And I'm excited to get into like how I thought that this episode really sang. And I would recommend this one as a first watch for a TNG person. This is a really cool... It's a really fun idea to show this one to start with, because you don't really need to know a lot about the characters, because by the end of it, there's a lot of context. Not only the mystery is resolved and there's a solution and there's an interesting kind of end, but you also get a chance to see what it feels like to sit in front of a show that's really confident about not only its writing, but also how this is shot, like with the different camera angles, and then the confidence in how it's acted, because this was like, mwah, this is like chef's kiss for my TNG. My TNG adorations were just like brimming on this one.
And
for every character.
Season 5 is such a perfect place to put this. Everybody is very comfortable, but not too exhausted, and it's just so juicy. I love it. So it could have been such a loser of an episode, because it could have been just record the same thing and then play it on repeat, but they reenact every scene, they rewrite every scene, and I could just go deep into how they made the episode, how it was directed and stuff. But let's stick with the actual episode itself for the minute. And what were some of your highlights? Because as soon as we started, I heard you giggling at the poker match, which is fun because I remembered that you'd seen this episode before. So the fact that it's making you laugh even more this time around is amazing. It's the most entertaining poker match in all of Star Trek.
Oh, Data is so brilliant. Brent
Spiner, so
Brent
good.
Spiner, he is so fun as this character.
Yeah.
And there's something about, and I know TNG goes back to a really special place, in my heart, because that's what I watched. And so I immediately feel this immersion that I don't know others would. Like, they may watch something like this and be easily distracted by their surroundings. I'm sucked into the world. I'm in it. And Data is this character that's just like firmly in my brain. But the way that he just gives Worf his cards kills me. And then as it progresses around, and he's like, what was it, like, still no help for the Klingon or something like that? It's just
the first round is like, no help there, still no help for the Klingon. And the reason that's like extra shady is that Data is counting cards. Like, he should always win poker. He is doing all of the math in his head, so he knows the permutations of what looks good for Worf. And he's telling the entire fucking table, that guy ain't got shit. Like,
I know.
He's got nothing. And Worf's just like, what am I to you, a joke?
And he's
I
like,
will break you.
He's slightly like he's childlike in so many ways, and even though he's incredibly dangerous, this character Data.
Yes.
But how he's doing it, this sort of subtle way of just making sure everyone knows their place. The very first time that they play poker, when it gets to Beverly, she pauses, and the first time that I watched this, there's no indication that she'd be pausing because she's having a memory flashback of some kind. Now I know, and it's such a nice, subtle hint right at the top that there's something going on. And he says, hey, you've got it's your turn to bet. And she just is so calm, and she's like, I know, Data. And so you can kind of tell that everyone is a bit annoyed to play with the android, but they're still doing it. And I don't know. I love this scene so much. And what's amazing is that each time it happens, because of how they change it slightly, and it becomes the center place for the plot to develop. It doesn't develop in sickbay. It doesn't develop around the science station and the engineering. This happens because of this poker game. Like,
it really does.
If they had not been playing poker, I guess. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. There are so many smart choices in this episode that elevate it. And I think the poker match might be the number one smartest choice that they made, because you could go, and Enterprise does this, Star Trek Enterprise. You could go around different parts of the ship and see people repeating things and getting confused. This focuses you in on one match, one scene with 4 of your main characters. And the clever thing about making it gambling and a poker game is that it's built in, predicting it is built in as an uneary thing. And you can change that so much. Like when they start the predictions and Data starts dealing out 3s instead. It's so clever because there's so much you can do in that scene that plays with repeating loops and being predictive. It's so clever.
What I really enjoyed just specifically about that too is that they progress this game from feelings of deja vu, and then we very quickly get to see that Beverly predicts, but it really amps up the intensity when you have the camera angles that are doing really close-ups of their face. So we're seeing like Beverly like freak out that she knows what's coming, but then I didn't remember or expect that Worf and Riker were going to both also predict, and they're all sharing this really shocking, scary moment. Then she predicts that Geordi is going to be there. And it's a bit distracting because I'm like, well, this doesn't seem to be the same time. Like maybe she's getting to sickbay a little bit too early. Like there was more time in the first one.
That does bug me a little bit.
There's some stuff that doesn't seem to match up, but at the same time, it's impossible to know what the timelines really are unless they have like a little counter going on, and God forbid anyone would give themselves that.
That might have given that away a little bit.
But the very, I think one of the most powerful storytelling parts of the poker game is that by the last loop, this is the one where they do end up dying again, but they have decided to send this code into the future. No, they sent the code in the future, and they're going to solve it now. This is the final time we're at the poker table. I am ready to be done. Like as a watcher and as a viewer, I'm like, okay,
yep.
But they are progressing things in a different way. We're hearing the conversation clip through faster, so that they're not really syncing. The thing that never changes really is the captain's log, which is totally fine because we kind of get through it pretty quickly. But how incredible of a storytelling moment is it when I am checking out because I've been in it long enough now, like I'm ready for resolution, and we're gonna predict the cards again, woo, but then fucking surprise, they're all 3s. I was right back in there like, oh shit, because I totally forgot that part.
Yes. It's so
I remember
clever.
that Data had a special point, but I couldn't remember how it played out exactly because it's been years since I've watched this. But at that moment, I'm drawn back in, and I'm like, okay, we have some new information. And I think that the writers and producing this up and how it's shot, trying to really make the storytelling element bring you along on a repetitive story. It's just really well done. And I had a great time, even though it was repetitive. I mean, which is, of course, time loop is going to be repetitive.
That balance is so crucial, and it's so fun to go into an episode with a mission. Like, clearly they know this is a time loop, they know they have a danger of being repetitive or being lazy, and that really, it's so obvious that it focuses Jonathan Frakes, who's doing the directing for this entire episode. It focuses Brandon Braga, who's doing the writing and came up with the story. Everyone is
Interesting.
focused on making this unique and engaging, and it ends up you could have the most complicated plot in the world, and I would be less engaged than I am in this episode because we've got the new camera angles, we've got the perfect pacing between each loop. I think the length of the loops are perfect. It gives me tingles every single time, no matter how many times I watch this episode. It's so clever.
It was really, really clever. And again, the poker element of it, I think that was the center. Nothing works if that poker game had stayed the same every single time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They really did have to progress this. And it's a mystery. You have this crew every single iteration of the last 17 days of their life on repetition. Something is a little bit different as something in their mind, even though they're resetting, is lingering. And I think that that's a really fascinating idea. I have questions about how that relates to the other ship, but maybe we'll get to that in the Sins.
We'll get to that in the Sins. I will explain this episode all day long. I love it so much. But it's with the poker match, just each person gets a turn to have the revelation. So the first time is through like normal. The next time Beverly has the revelation. The time after that, Riker's like, "You're going to call my bluff. I quit."
Yeah.
And then the time after that, Worf is getting involved in calling the cards out. And those close-ups, like the other reason this episode is so memorable is the crazy camera angles and the close-ups.
It's so good, right?
And Frakes knew, like, directing this, he had to pull out everything. Like, him and Brannon Braga did an interview for the 30th anniversary of this episode. And he said, I had to get imaginative. So he was literally just like looking around the room for like the observation room when they're up in the ceiling. He's just like, can we get a camera up there? And they were like, well, we don't film from up there. Great.
Let's do that.
We're going to do that now then. And the close-ups, he was like, on TV, as a rule, you don't do these really full screen face-ups because when you see it in your living room, it's a bit unnerving and it's a bit weird. It's something you see a lot more in feature films and at the cinema. So he was like, fuck it, I'm going to do a bit of Spielberg here.
I love
and
that.
Just zoom in on like the dramaticness.
Oh,
and
it
it's
was
so
so good.
different. That's why it feels weird.
Yes.
Because you don't usually see it.
There's a specific moment when it's so brilliant in a way that I don't think that I realize we kind of need in the storytelling. Like,
it's so crucial. And if it's done well, you don't even realize it's happening.
But in this case, it's center stage because you're repeating the same thing over and over again. So any subtle difference we're going to catch because we're also in the loop with them, right? So for him to almost sort of like buffer those potential things that, like, for example, things not happening in the exact same time, we would be really distracted by that if we weren't entertained in a new way. And one of the ones that really stood out to me, and I mentioned the poker game with Beverly's close-up and Riker's close-up, but there's this really beautiful moment where it's a close-up of Geordi. Holy shit, is this the most beautiful man? He is so beautiful. And I really enjoy Geordi. And I know that there's jokes about like there's some love episodes that we're not showing me so that my love of Geordi isn't ruined. Like, thanks again, guys, for helping me not I guess watch those. But Geordi is such a great character, and it kind of gets a bit boring, doesn't it, to like hear someone have an earache over and over again.
Yes.
But shifting it to where you're forced to read the expression, but then also you don't have his expression of his eyes. You just have the expression of his face and
yet
the way
he's
his
still
cadence is.
So expressive.
Yeah. And there's just this tension that's building about how they're going to solve things. And I don't know, it really worked for me. And I think seeing the close-ups, not realizing that they wouldn't normally do that, maybe that's again why it stands out more than I realized. But for me, it just intensified this mystery of feeling this way. And it made me think about how weird it would be as these brilliant, explorers in space to everyone. Like when she says deja vu, but both of us about the same thing.
It's so clever.
It's so good because you're like, this would be really freaky.
Yes.
And then she just left this poker game where weird shit's going on. And I love how there's no shift. Like, in that early on the iteration, she's like straight to captain. We're not. I feel like a lot of storytelling anymore is just a lot of it's like padded. It's like oh, I'm not going to tell anybody. And they just kind of wait for no reason. She's like, dude, I'm going to go talk to Captain.
Yeah, this is fucking weird.
And the camera angles are even good for Captain because we know after a couple of beats that he's also been reading a book that seems familiar. And then they show us him reading the book at the very end of the episode. We know this. We don't have to see it. But it's a little glimpse into Geordi's expressions or Picard reading a book and kind
Something
of reclining
he referred
his
to
space.
early in the episode. Yeah, and you get to see
so-
him flicking through the pages.
And then you've got this one shot of the bridge exploding, which you could show over and over and over again so that it's super continuity, but it's not about continuity because every single time it's just slightly different.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to have the angle from this person and now we're going to have the angle from here. And it really just gave it all life in a super cool way. And I fucking love this episode.
So good. Yes. Oh, it's
really
so fun
like this episode.
it's so fun to talk about and to geek out about it. The other thing I just thought about with the camera angles is that usually we're on the journey with the crew. Like we're discovering the mystery at the same time and we're kind of like a de facto crew member. But in this episode, we're not experiencing the same thing because we have our memories. We do remember the previous loop, which is why it's okay to kind of break the format a little bit and go with these different camera angles because we already know that we're a couple of steps ahead of the crew. So it kind of gives you permission to go a little bit crazy and go God mode and just be observing everything and still keeps us guessing. But otherwise it would be boring because we're like, yeah, it's a time loop, guys. Figure it out. Like we know because we're seeing the loop over and over again. But it's so clever. And the way the mystery itself is so satisfying and the way they resolve it, for me, yes, there's technobabble, but it's so satisfying. Like you said, the way Beverly tries to solve the mystery and she tries to break it on like the fourth or fifth loop. She picks up the scissors to trim her plant, puts them back down, she moves the glass, she does her bedtime routine but with a tricorder ready, and there's no dialogue there. That's all her just figuring shit out on her own.
I know.
Which is what you would always want to do. You'd want to try to break the pattern and do something differently. And it's so well done. And that little fuck you of the glass getting knocked over, even though it's across the room, is so subtle. It doesn't say anything about like the temporal mechanics that are going on.
Right.
It's just an extra layer of you're insane, Beverly. You're losing it.
It is. It really is. I mean, I think I had the same thought about the glass as well. Like the second time when she moved it, you could kind of feel like I'm gonna go with my instinct here. I have just predicted cards. I'm having all of these things are happening. I'm going to predict more. I'm going to move my cup or my glass, and I'm going to grab my tricorder and I'm going to record some stuff because I just have this instinct. And it's so fun to see someone be right.
Yes.
And I really also did enjoy the downshift because it is an intense episode. I mean, they're blowing. We're watching them die
again and again. Although I'm more attached to the ship being destroyed because
what?
I know that happened. They'll come back.
Monster.
They'll come back. That poor ship.
You monster.
That nacelle gets fucked up so much. It's
it's real bad. But seeing them in that like quiet time where Beverly is just kind of humming to herself and pruning a plant, and it's these little scenes that remind you that these are people living on a ship and they have downtime. Like Picard, he has downtime to read, and there's just these places that they go, and they have downtime to play poker as well. So it brings the characters to life a little bit more as well. I mean, why is she wearing a shoelace in her hair? Hey, it is the future fashion.
Have you ever tried to sleep with long hair, Deneé? You need to pull at least 7% of it up to make it possible to sleep, especially when you're sleeping in a wig.
Yeah, I definitely don't know anything about having long hair.
No, not at all. Oh man, what else could I go on about with this episode? So I guess the writing itself is a fascinating story to me. So Brandon Braga goes on to become like Star Trek god eventually. He's a staff writer at this point. Time travel, Gene Roddenberry was still alive at this point, and time travel was basically crossed off the list.
So Gene saw this episode?
I'm 97% certain he saw this episode.
That would make my heart really happy because I feel like this would be one to be really proud of.
He was definitely alive.
We don't know for sure.
After a very quick Googling, post-edit, and some help from the chat, Gene had sadly passed away. So he never got to see this episode.
So sad.
So sad.
He would have been proud. I don't know him well enough to say that, but I'm going to just make that assumption.
I don't know. I think he might have hated it.
What?
He wasn't a fan of time travel. He thought it was too cliche.
I think he would have appreciated this one.
I hope so. Yeah. Absolutely hope so. Yeah. He famously didn't really want to do too much time travel in TNG or at all. So Brandon knew that if he was going to do this, it's got to be really great. And it was his reputation as a great staff writer for the show that got it past Michael Piller. And he was like, okay, basically, if anyone else suggested this, it's an immediate no before I even bring this to anybody else. But because it's you, you're going to have a shot at it. So he writes the episode. He knows that Frakes is going to direct it. And then what I love is that he's stuck on the resolution. He's like, I think I've figured out some cool ways to get this done, but I don't know how to solve the mystery. So what does he do? He goes to his fellow writers and says, I need help. And he goes to all of the best Star Trek minds at the time in the writer's room and Michael Piller. And he's just like, give me some help here, guys. And they come together with the ending that it's going to be a Dekion field. The data sends a message back through to the other loop, and that creates an after image, and all of that happens. And I just love that so much, of having this idea and then not being too proud to say, I need some help getting this across the line, guys. And I think that's another reason why it's such an incredible episode. It's so, so good.
Ugh, I love that
so
story.
Fun.
Yeah. And, that's kind of the joy of having a really creative position is that it's not always about you doing it fully yourself, although there are times that one person is able to do it all. And we've actually talked to writers who wrote entire scripts, but those are usually shifted and changed. And so to ask for collaboration right at the start is really cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he said he was most intimidated by writing the technobabble for Geordie's first briefing about the time loop, when Geordie's just like, this is going to sound wild. And I love opening with that line, because this is Star Trek. You meet with aliens. You've encountered temporal rifts before. There are temporal lessons at Starfleet Academy. You know this shit happens, but Geordie's just like, you're not gonna believe this.
Yeah.
But that just adds an extra level of, this is wild, guys. This is crazy. We keep dying.
Well, but like to like my love of these characters and how they work together, and I think it helps me to believe that this ship can exist in some sci-fi world somewhere, that these people can all work together.
Hey, I live and dream by that.
Yeah. When they're like all around the table and they're talking about these theories that they have and bringing to evidence these various things, the episode itself gives them authority to talk to each other. Like, we're not missing information within this episode. Sometimes you have to like look at a full work to understand why, for example, anyone would listen to Beverly. She could come off as cuckoo bananas. The show could write her as a kook, and then she has to try to convince everyone, but no.
It'd be so frustrating.
People believe her, and they're like, yeah, let's figure this out.
Even at that first briefing, she's like, I've been hearing voices, and she is... I know she's said that multiple people have reported in the voices, but she still brings that straight to a briefing without any fear of judgment. And they all go around the table and say, yeah, it could be this, this, and this. Let's get to work. And it's so, yes,
it's just really nice, isn't it?
Yeah, everything needs conflict, but it doesn't have to be this certain type of conflict where everybody has to prove themselves. This is just nice. And that is why I love TNG.
In this episode?
I think it's a self-belief thing. I think there is so little evidence, and it's so subtle, that each individual, especially Beverly, has to convince themselves that something is out of the ordinary to investigate the problem. Because as soon as you get to the end of the loop, you're back to square one, essentially, other than these echoes. So it's having that faith in yourself to not write off the crazy thing and investigate it further, and just getting more and more and more each time.
It was really nice to not see a forced conflict. And maybe people talk about like underusing Beverly in the series, or and underusing Deanna, things like that, which for the 90s wasn't really a shock. But
sigh.
It's a really nice episode because even though in that time, maybe they could easily play the female character as the cuckoo one or as the over emotional one or as the one who's overthinking things, which is kind of a common trope that you'll see with women in general is like, oh, you're overthinking things or whatever. This one, they're engaged and they're solution oriented, and the conflict isn't that easy reach. The conflict, like you said, I think you're right. It is that interpersonal thing, because each time you see a conflicted face on screen, it's them internalizing something.
It's Riker's face when he's just like, you're going to call my bluff. How do I know you're going to call my bluff?
Right.
How do you know that I know that I'm going to call your... It's so good.
The conflict here is that they're stuck in a time loop, and that's outside of their ability
this is
to
nature.
break out of, at least until they're like, well, we can send ourselves back a message. Let's give it a go. And I really enjoyed that part. Like, seeing Data have the thing on his arm the whole time, knowing that it's different, and you're just wondering
any minute
what's going to happen, and then he all of a sudden has a thought. We don't know what it is. He it's on his little armband, and then we start all over again.
In that moment, I get chills because we've seen this explosion before, and then suddenly this is different from every other loop, and Data knows, and he's like, "Fuck, I don't have long." And it's just he could like. Any human might have been like, oh shit, no, and then boom. But Data's just like, I'm dead. I'm going to die. What I have to do here is send the message back on the armband. And it's so efficient.
So good.
It's exactly how you should use Data and an android. It's so good.
Yeah, it's really fun. And then again, like we've already mentioned, so we don't have to keep looping over and over again.
Let's keep talking about it. We're going back to the beginning.
Is the brilliance that part of me was like, oh, here we go again. And then part of me was immediately engaged because now we have the mystery of the threes. And
that last loop is one of the most entertaining ones, isn't it?
And that Data himself is responsible for all of these iterations of three because it's just in his subconscious somewhere and just coming out of him. And then he eventually figures out that, well, in the last second, figures out that to him, three means this. And that's the part that they say as they're debriefing is, we have no idea how to predict or control how Data will perceive this subconscious information.
So good.
And this, you guys, is why astrology is real.
No, don't. I'm done. I'm out. We're going to reset the loop. But it's so clever. And it's set up in the very first line of dialogue after the captain's log. And Riker's just like, I hope he's not stacking the deck. He does.
And
he stacks the deck.
He stacks the deck.
It's so good.
And as a non-poker player, I'm like, oh, okay, well, the whole deck can't be threes. And also, what does three even mean? We don't know initially.
It's so satisfying.
And then everyone gets a three. What was it?
It was all threes and then three of a kind.
Was it three of a kind?
3 sixes, 3 kings, and then 3 queens or something like that.
Yeah. So I'm like, so there's like these weird sort of iterations, and even I, as a non-poker player, I'm like, ooh.
I love how Data's like, to date, I have discovered like 6,940 unique instances of the number 3. I'm like, were you not going to tell anyone that? That's fucking weird, my friend. Have you been peeing in 3-second intervals? Like, how many 3s have you been manufacturing? Did you knock on the door 3 times? What have you been doing? So funny.
I mean that's true. Yeah, that's true. It was a lot. I think that. Do you agree that this would be a great first episode for somebody?
I have
Just
always.
Circle back.
Yep, I've always thought this in my head that it would be a good first episode to watch. I've gone backwards and forwards on it sometimes, but I just have to rewatch it, and I'm just like, this does what it needs to do. Like, and it has been as I've grown up and I've gradually introduced a girlfriend to Star Trek as the final test of whether we're gonna make it. It is the one that I introduced them to first, because Star Trek, especially around like probably people of my age and younger, like the people that lived in the void that didn't have Strange New Worlds, didn't have Voyager, and were living in that 7-year gap of no Star Trek, or it might have been longer actually. Star Trek has a reputation for being a bit slow and a bit boring, and Star Wars is the big flashy one. Whereas I
Yeah.
kind of cheat with this episode because I'm like, yeah, you're going to get immediate explosions, you're going to get a mystery, you're going to get time travel, and you're going to get some poker. And
you're going to get
and a
some
satisfying
interpersonal
mystery.
sass.
Yeah. So no help for the Klingon. It's just incredible. I do remember as a kid, I can easily say I've seen this episode more than any other episode of Star Trek. It's the one I would beg my dad to let us watch, and he was so done with it, to be honest, because he was like, can we just watch one of the other 170 episodes of TNG that are out there? And I was like, nope, cause and effect. And I always remember when I was a kid wanting there to be one more loop. I was like, I don't want it to be the end of the episode yet. I want another loop. Another loop. Obviously, now I know this episode is perfect. But I was always just like, when it got to dealing the threes, I was like, oh, we're nearly at the end. They're figuring it out. I wanted them to be stuck for decades.
That's adorable.
Oh, love it so much.
That's adorable. No, I think it's the perfect length, and also before we get on to like sins or anything else, and I'm sure we probably are missing some epic moments, and I sort of want to go back through and think about it too. Is I really enjoyed seeing Captain Picard hanging out in his darker costume, his darker
the grey, slightly baggier undershirt.
Yeah, like maybe his like captain's pajamas or something, and they're not like the normal silky ones he wore last episode. They're like fancy, and it has like little ribbed sort of section, sort of maybe like knit up at the top or something. And then in the background is this really, really cool painting that I've never noticed before.
Yes, of the Enterprise. Of course, it's his big painting of the Enterprise in his ready room.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
It's
and
beautiful.
I found out that you can actually like
there
you
it
can
is.
actually, I don't know if I can scooch it there. I just pulled it up on the screen.
Oh,
look at that.
It's so pretty. It's
you
so
can actually
good.
kind of order it.
I want one.
And you can get it and put it on your wall.
So they actually recreated this for Picard season 2. So when Picard is in the alternate universe and they have the USS, it's the Star. It's not the Star.
I was thinking of the Picard part where Data he did some kind of art, but it wasn't this.
I think this picture is there somewhere, but in the alternate timeline, there's this painting, but with the World Razor, which is the evil version of the Enterprise. And it's a really, really cool nod. And it's just got fucking guns all over it, and Picard is a dictator. Yeah,
I don't know why I've never noticed it before, but I hadn't ever noticed it before.
It's absolutely stunning. It's so pretty. The weird thing is that it's the wrong Enterprise. Because I think by this point, they'd used a new model, so the proportions aren't quite right.
Oh, okay. Okay, wow. All right.
So good. So good. I love that.
Let's talk about some of the other cool shit that we saw this episode.
Yeah, what hit you, Deneé?
Obviously, we got to see a lot of ship destruction. And I think
we did. Oh my goodness.
Not only do you see a ship, it's the ship.
Oh, it's our ship.
How did you feel about each explosion? Does your heart hurt a little bit, or are you also kind of like...
for sure. It's both. I get really excited. Like, that opening shot is scored into my brain of the nacelle flashing red. And there are sound effects used in this episode or a combination of sound effects that I don't hear in any other episode. Like when the tractor beam goes off, it sounds like it's a very unique alarm. And I just associate that alarm with, oh shit, the ship's going to blow up. Because I think it's the only time I can remember hearing it. And just the different ways that they shot that model blowing up. Like, just the joy that they clearly had. Because the Enterprise is always under threat. How often do you actually get to blow it up and come back from it in a way that isn't Q snapping his fingers, that doesn't feel really contrived, or, oh, it was all a dream, it doesn't matter. And they took so much joy and care in just the ship flying into this explosion, then the cell flying off and separating. It's such a... If you're going to nail an explosion, this is the one to nail, and they do it so well. Every time the Bozeman clips that nacelle, I die. That's the instant where I die a bit, because that's the point of no return. Like, everything up until that point, by definition, the disaster is avoidable. But once that nacelle is clipped, they are fucked. They are done for.
I had no idea what this other ship was, this Bozeman or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When you first saw it, I know it's been a long time. Did you know what ship it was?
No,
Did you
I
have
had
clues about how long ago it had been stuck in its loop based on its NCC-ing?
So this is...
Whatever you want to call it.
I may well have been 7 or 8 when I watched this. This predates any knowledge I would have had of Star Trek at all. It would have been the first time that I saw the old uniform. It would have been the first time that I saw this ship. It would have been before I watched The Wrath of Khan. And this
when
ship...
you were still in diapers.
Basically, I could have still been in diapers. So I wasn't thinking any of that. It's way, way after the fact. Where it's only when they really come on screen. Because this ship is... It's very much an original series ship. So the story behind it is that they wanted to use Kirk's, the original Enterprise, that style of ship, the Constitution class, because it would have been really cool to see a TOS, our Enterprise, but with a different name, come out of the void and then crash into the modern Enterprise. But basically, they didn't have access to that model. The model that they did have from that era was the Reliant, which is this ship, and it was used in The Wrath of Khan, and they just kind of retooled it. They took off some parts, they put on some extra guns, and they made it kind of time appropriate because that's the only model that they had. So that kind of dictated how long this ship will have been in the time loop for. So yeah, I didn't know a thing. It's only way after the fact.
Yeah, it really is a good episode for a new person to watch too, because you don't need to know much. You're told it's been 17 years, or however long. No,
it's been 17
years.
days,
17
but 80
days
years. Yeah, for that ship.
So you're told that information, and then you see visually some differences with obviously their dress and some of the background as well. And so I don't think that you need to know that information, but I figured it'd be kind of fun for anyone would like watch it with that knowledge kind of going in. Because then you
can say, well, we can actually go back to that era. We have 6 films that we can watch, and it's really, really, really clever. And I think we were going to get to this in the sins, but I'm going to drop it now because it isn't a sin. So did you have a question about how long the other ship had been in the loop, or was that confusing to you that they'd been in it for 80 years and the Enterprise for only 17 days?
Yeah, and I'm sure that we're going to get into this in the sins, but besides the sci-fi chatter confusing me a little bit, which they do a pretty good job of.
You mean the Deccan fields? That was
repeating some things and then explaining them enough that you're like, oh, okay, I can.
What about the positron I cannot say that word. The positron parallelometer. The positronic parallelometer.
Is that really what they say?
They do say parallelometer to replace one of the scanners that isn't working. Nothing to do with the story. I just really like
parallelometer.
That's
fun. I wonder if they just make up words whenever they're just to fuck with them, right? Like to fuck with the actors.
Oh man, before I forget, what I love about TNG is the gatekeeping that would happen. So they didn't allow just any old technobabble to come through. In that interview, Brandon Braga said, to get this episode on the air, the technobabble has to make sense. It has to pass Michael Piller, or else he will send it back and say, you're saying words that don't mean anything. Like, yes, we're making up science, but you have to make it up in a way that's believable. And that's why this sings so much, because yes, it's gibberish, but I get it. Like, I buy it. That works.
I found myself buying it as well, even though I'm like, okay, no, it makes sense. He's seeing something in his field, and it's causing him to
blurry
get dizzy.
After images in time.
But my questions really kind of were like more of understanding how the rift was working. Like, I got the visual. They did a really nice little visual for me where it's like you go through and you blip back in, and then you go through and you blip back in. Yeah. And so I wasn't certain why we were blipping back in, and I wasn't sure what the cause of it was, because if they've been there for 80 years and we've only been here for 17, I didn't get how they connected or whatever. So that was confusing to me.
That nebula distortion time soupy thing is basically a doorway to 80 years in the past. So from the point of view of the Bozeman, it's the Enterprise emerging. But from our point of view, it's the Bozeman coming out of the window. So the Enterprise is in the future, and the Bozeman has been pulled 80 years into the future. So it could have been really unlucky and the Enterprise finishes the loop 80 years in the past. So whereas the Bozeman has been in this loop for 17 days as well, but their final resting point is 80 years in the future. So this is just like a doorway through time. And when the explosion happens between the ships, that creates the loop that puts them back to the beginning. So if they hadn't collided, all that happens is that the Bozeman flies into a time wormhole and arrives next to the Enterprise. But because they hit each other, they both get stuck in a loop. So the Enterprise just got lucky, to be honest, that it didn't end up in the past.
Oh.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, sure. Sure
There's
does make the sense.
There's 2 different time travel things that happened. Bozeman gets chucked 80 years in the future and then time loop after the detonation.
Okay. So because they collided, the loop begins.
That's what triggers the loop, yeah.
And because of timey-wiminess, the old ship just happened to be on its way to the future at that exact moment.
But it's all linked together. So if that time distortion hadn't been there, then the Bozeman wouldn't have turned up to create the crash.
Right. So like the Bozeman's just going through space and it comes across this thing and then it ends up right in path with the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Super fucking unlucky. Galactically unlucky.
How improbable is that?
1,000,000 to 1.
To quote my friend Ian, do they know how big space is?
Do they know how big space and time is? Not only is it the exact spot where the Enterprise is, but it's the exact time that the Enterprise is there as well. It is a galactic, like, just impossibility that this happened. And yet, I'm glad it did.
I am too. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
That kind of clears
sin,
it up
yeah.
for me. So they had only been in the loop for 17 days as well.
Yes.
But they're going to go into the loop and out in the future, whereas our guys are going to go into the loop and out 17 days from their own timeline.
Exactly.
Okay.
So in theory, if the Enterprise had got there first, the Enterprise would have turned up in the past, and then when they avoid the collision, is stuck in the past.
Okay.
It's just the fact that the Bozeman came through the portal.
Ooh.
And it's a part of the episode they don't explain. That's all that I'm just deducing based on it kind of just makes sense. But it's such an incredible final punch of, so Captain Bateson, when exactly do you think this is? And he's like, what a stupid question. It's 2260 something. I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. And then the weird moment where Picard is like in sort of like I don't think he means for it to come across as aggressive, but it's like, you should come aboard my ship so we can talk. Like,
we have a little bit to go over.
So, a little bit more explanation. We will cover up some of the technology so that you're not immediately shocked.
It's a newly minted ship. They just left space dock.
They just left space dock a few days ago, guys.
And
so funny.
Bam, 80
and
years
then for
gone.
us, it's like when you drive a car off of the lot of a car dealership.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's the newest car that's ever been made, and then immediately worthless.
It's incredible. It's so good.
I also kind of liked that as soon as they got free of the time loop, and Data explains his logic in going with Riker's shuttle bay situation, how they like accessed the most recent time buoy. I don't know what they called it, but it was like the official way that they're going to check their clocks. I thought that was really clever as well.
Yeah, I have a sin about that, but yeah, they check the local starbase basically to check their chronometers, and it just tells you, like, you're just like hanging on tenterhooks, just like, how long has it been? And part of me wants them to say it's been 23 years. They play it really safe and kind of, it's been 17 days. And there's just this relief on Captain Picard's face. We're just like, oof, that's quite a long time, but it could have been a lot fucking longer. Like, this could have been years that they lost.
They sort of process it, and they're like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It's fine. 6 months. I think it would have been cool with 6 months.
How many women on board are like, God, I have been on this period for way too long.
Yeah. It's been 6 days. Yeah, it feels like a year.
Feels like it's been a long time. My uterus is sore.
Before we move on, can't really do this without mentioning Kelsey Grammer's sudden appearance. Now, I don't know if you've seen Frasier or Cheers, but was it weird to see him suddenly pop up as the captain, or just like, oh, hey, look, guest star?
Okay, so it was like, I know that face. I know that face. I know that voice. I am done looking at your face now, and we're done.
And the episode's over. It's so fun because Kelsey Grammer, huge Trekkie. This predates Frasier. He just happened to be filming in the lot around the corner from Paramount, and they were just like, or wherever they were filming at the time. And he was like, I really want to be in Star Trek. And they're like, okay, you can be Captain Bateman of this ship. And
it's
so
never
happy.
seen again.
Never seen again. Well, he's in some novels. But yeah, never seen on screen again. But it's just, what a dream. Like, to be a fan of like the original series and the movies, and then to get to be the captain of a ship, even for one scene. And I think he does a great job. He's super fun.
That would be like the dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Become
Amazing.
canon.
Yeah. Kelsey Grammer is officially Captain Bateman. Well, we didn't do any predictions because I'd forgotten that you'd watched this episode, so
that was funny.
Predictions weren't quite fair, so that was fine.
I didn't tell you about it last week either when you said cause and effect, because I didn't want to. You were
I was also
excited.
in a pissy mood as well when I told you about it, because you were live with the show and you was like, "What's the homework for next week?" I'm like, "Fuck it, cause and effect," because I wanted to deliver the cause and effect news.
It can't always be about you, Ian.
I know. However, how many? As if I have to ask, how many pips is this going to be?
All of them.
It's 10 out of 10 pips. It's not. It's all of the pips.
Is 3
it's
pips
Riker's
the most?
beard. It's 4 pips is the most, but it should be 3. But yeah, it's
for this episode, it's like 3. It's solid 3 because it has to.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
4 lights. Oh man, we should watch that episode.
It's 3 out of 3 pips if 3 is the highest that we can go.
It has to be 3. I have seen 3 an inordinate amount of times.
I do have to say, during the live show, I noticed that someone said that Data also has 3 pips. Maybe that should launch us into the sins, shall it?
Yeah, with that, everyone, let's head over to engineering for some sins. Battle stations, everyone. This won't take long.
Warning. Warp core collapse in 10 seconds.
This is the part of the show where we re-engage our sin brains, remind ourselves that no TV shows without sin, except the best episode of Star Trek ever. I refuse to participate in this part of the show. It's stupid. It's dumb. I'm not doing it. It's stupid. It's dumb. You first, Ambassador.
Well, let's just start with what was brought up in the chat, and I didn't know this, but Sci-Fi Brony said that there's 3 pips. That Data has 3 pips as well.
So it's true, but in his eye line, like, the reason this works is because it isn't Geordi that sent the message for me. Data has sent the message to himself. So in that second, he's like, what would I have done? And he looks around and he's triggered by the same thing that triggers him in the previous loop. So it's very awkward to look at your own pips. But right in his eye line, other than Williams Wong, it's Riker. Just Riker's dick just slapping against Data's shoulder for the entire thing.
During while we were watching it, you were like, "Get your dick away from Data!"
Who stands like this? He just walks over and dominates Data's position. Just like, yeah, you might be an android, but I'm the real peak of evolution here, my friend. Just get your dick away from his ear. Anyway. But yeah, I get it. Like, you can look at the 3 pips, and yeah, I get it. It's fine. I'm okay with it.
I think that I would definitely say that's a sin, but I want to justify it because it's like he's realizing something in the moment. He is also, in a way, having his own sense of deja vu, and it's like what he's looking at. What does 3 mean to Data? And in that moment, he kind of recourses, but it's just such a fluke. He could have easily just been like, yeah, I'm going to confirm that this is because 3 means me. It even rhymes.
The other explanation I have is that we know they've been in there for 17 days. We don't see all of the 17 days. So I think much like Groundhog, are you kidding me? I would absolutely I want a whole season of this. And much like Groundhog Day, we don't see every single iteration. So I think that there were maybe 20, 50, 100 loops of Data not figuring out it was 3 pips and typing in something else, sending in the wrong message, something like that. And this is just the loop that worked. So I don't think this is the only time he got it right. Because the advantage of repeating loops is that you have a lot of opportunities to try new shit. That's the other pass that I give it.
Yeah. Let's go in with one of your sins, and then I'll go into the chat, because I really didn't have much. I was enjoying it far too much.
The biggest sin of the episode for me is Riker saying, I suppose it's better to be lucky than good. Fuck you, dude. What a sore loser.
Oh my God, that was so sassy.
So sassy. Beverly calls his bluff, and she's like, I just had a feeling, which is basic. Like, yes, there's a lot of logic, but sometimes
She's
you do
using
just follow
time to cheat.
that feeling. Yeah, that's fair. But she knows how Riker plays. She knows that he's a very aggressive player, especially when he's backed into a corner. But he is genuinely pissed off that he lost. It's like, yeah, well, I guess you're just lucky. Fine.
Here's one from Nick. Beverly is so good in this episode, and yet the series still treats her like a potted plant in the corner every other episode.
And bouncing off of that sin, it would have made more sense for this to be a Deanna episode, because I could believe that like her telepathicness is picking up on the after images and the afterglow of the previous loops. Like, that would have been really easy to tie into her powers. I love that we have a Beverly episode, but logically for me it makes sense to make this Deanna. Can you pull up Nick's sin for me? Because I want to challenge it.
Yes.
Because if Nick thinks this, there's a good chance that the listeners at home might think it as well. And I could be wrong, but Nick is saying that the Bozeman was in the loop for 100 years. And this is a big kind of argument that I've heard, but it doesn't make sense to me because the Enterprise is part of their loop. So I don't know how they can be in the loop for 100 years and the Enterprise isn't. And especially since the Bozeman comes through into the Enterprise's time and hits them, and then the loop starts. There's no reason for them to be in it for 80 years. Like, the only way the Bozeman meets the Enterprise is if it's coming into the future or the Enterprise is coming into the past. And either way, it just, for me, it makes sense that they're both in it for 17 days. There's just two different things happening. The initial time travel that brings the Bozeman to the future, then the collision which creates the time loop. So it's devastating that the Bozeman has skipped 80 years, but that happens completely separate to the time loop stuff. Because when they avoid the time loop, Bozeman is still stuck in the future. They've just skipped over 80 years. So that's where I've landed on it in my head.
Yeah. It looks like there's both kind of thoughts, or like multiple thoughts rather, that was in the chat. But I think Slab sums it up well and just says, time, how does it work?
It's fair.
And that's
Totally
pretty
fair.
much all we need to know.
I just think it's such a brilliant little conversation to have as well, because I can see it being argued that the Enterprise was in it for 17 days and the Bozeman was in it for 80 years. Fuck it, it's time travel. Like, that's just how it happens. But for me, it makes much more sense that it's two separate things. Oh boy, love that shit.
Yeah, me too. I super love that shit. Oh man, I told you going into this, the one thing that I was like a little bit nervous about is just trying to explain anything. I'm just gonna have fun with it.
Nope, I'll take it. I'll take all of that.
This is a sin from Sci-Fi Brony. Geordi's visor is picking up distortions in the plot device field. Cliche.
Yeah, any kind of techie excuse is gonna be. I still don't understand how they can. They should not be experiencing deja vu. Like, I don't know why this temporal phenomenon. Fine, Dekion fields, but I don't know why it's doing that. They should be trapped in this loop forever and ever and ever. One of my favourite sins that I only just thought about this time round watching it, as happens when you put your sin brain on, is the fact that they're in the loop for 17 days and nobody is concerned that the Enterprise is on this star charting mission in the Typhon Expanse, goes missing for 17 days, because it's not the entire universe that gets reset. It's this local phenomenon that throws their chronometer out of whack. So why, after 17 days, hasn't Starfleet sent somebody out there, or like some kind of check-in?
Or the other ship. No, wait, they've only been gone.
No, they knew it went missing. All they know is that the Bozeman went missing.
Okay.
80 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, it's wild that Starfleet isn't just like, the flagship has been missing in uncharted territory and has gone missing for 17 days. They should be
and then just more ships show up, and it's just like this compound thing where they're all crashing into each other.
Amazing. Well, I was kind of imagining just like a perimeter of them watching this
Ting,
loop
ting,
happen.
ting,
Ping back,
ting.
ping back. Like,
It's like a ping pong ball.
Like, we're not getting involved in that. No.
That kind of pings on this one from David, who says, if the Enterprise truly reset every time it went through the loop, the chronometers would reset as well. There should be no difference of 17.4 days between the ship and the outside world. So it needs to be one or the other. It needs to be everything is resetting, or like
I get it.
someone should show up. So I think it kind of depends on your perspective. Or
no, that's right, because it's a new Enterprise. The chronometers shouldn't. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Because it's a new ship every time, that suggests that the chronometers survive the explosion. Yeah, that's a really good point. It should be reset. That's purely so that we know how long they've been in the loop. Which is kind of weird, because then they could have been in there for 1,000 years and it wouldn't have mattered. Yeah, that's a really good point. This is why I fucking love this episode. I've been watching this episode for 25 years and I'm still thinking new things about it. Yeah, the chronometer shouldn't be different. It's the same. It's because the loop hasn't happened. Yeah, that's great. Well done, David. Love that. My brain.
There's some updates. No. There's a 17.4 day differential between ships' local chronometers and Starfleet time beacons.
What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? It's the same ship though. It hasn't blown up yet, so it shouldn't. They shouldn't. It hasn't. The loop hasn't happened. I love it. Love it.
Oh
boy.
I'm really loving how this is going to happen every episode, where we're just going to have the chat talking about all of the interactions of this is going to be good. I'm excited about this series. Time travel is
so fun. It's so fun.
Another one from David. The Riker foot on the op station pose. He's totally stepping on the L-Cars panel. The cars panel.
Mm-hmm.
The Aries panel. I don't know how to pronounce that. Hope that doesn't control something important.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why the ejection systems are offline?
Don't put your feet on things. Thank you very much.
Stop putting your feet. I know your back hurts. I understand.
Yes. Sorry, Jonathan. This is just so dumb. Again, I only noticed it this time round. But when they get to the briefing and they figure out that they're in a time loop and it's caused by an explosion, whatever, and Picard just says the immortal line, "Let's do everything we can to avoid the collision." Thank you, Captain.
Derp.
Derp. Oh my god. Let's not crash into the ship.
Good plan.
Great plan, Jean-Luc. Never would have thought of that. Just stunning.
Here's one from Sci-Fi Baroni. The medical logs say Geordi had a headache related to the common cold on Stardate 45773, but the common cold isn't supposed to be a thing anymore.
That's beautiful, yeah.
Ooh.
Beverly says in a previous episode, you shouldn't be having a headache, not since we solved the common cold back in blah, blah, blah. Yeah, very true. So this is probably an episode-breaking sin, and it's once again, let's just shit on Worf because he exists. Worf actually solves the problem, and he says, well, why don't we just turn back? If we know if we know the collision is causing the time loop, why don't we reverse course? Fucking Riker chimes in and says, well, let's not second guess ourselves. What if reversing course causes the explosion? No, because you know what didn't happen during the first explosion? This conversation, because the loop hadn't happened yet. So you wouldn't be talking about reversing course, which means the first time that this happened, you were going ahead as normal. So changing direction in this time makes sense, because you can guarantee you didn't do that last time. It's just, and Picard should have known that. Picard should have been like, wait a minute. No. The only reason we shouldn't change direction is because it's what we did the first time. Blah! Change course.
Blah!
Change fucking course. Game over. Game over.
There was another, and I'm going to try to find it because somebody mentioned that Worf thing during the chat too, and I thought that was really interesting. And the other one was some kind of a comment about, is the real hero of this episode the person that prevented LaForge from falling? Because if LaForge hadn't fell, then
fuck. Oh no,
they wouldn't have figured it out at all, because they wouldn't have had Geordi getting the
it's a good job Ensign Lynch or somebody was there to catch me. It's a long way down to the bottom of the warp core.
Yeah, it was
amazing.
It was in the chat.
Yeah.
It was a great.
That would have been the end of it. No Decian field. That would have been so hard.
I don't understand why the Bozeman didn't answer their hail when they came through.
Oh, systems down, things, distortions. You tried time traveling 80 years in a couple of seconds.
Oh, that's true. They
Because the
hadn't
shields weren't up
syncopated.
either. Like, everything was going haywire.
It was just a bit like, oh, now we can talk to him. Now that the danger is out of the way,
Immediate red alert down. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine now.
I guess it kind of is, actually.
We couldn't talk to you before. Like, why couldn't they move out of the path too?
Oh, the
They had
distortion
36
stopped their
fucking
engines.
seconds. Do you know how long that is?
The
That's a long
distortion
time.
stopped their engines. Everything.
That is a long enough time for the captain to say, what are our options?
All hands abandon ship.
Like, he just kind of looks around and just says, okay, crew, talk to me.
Come on, Deneé.
Oh, yeah, nothing was working. That's right.
So I have to say,
Thanks, chat.
The most painful part of the episode for me is when Picard says, what are the options? Riker gives an option. Data gives an option. As the as the Bozeman is coming to the screen, I'm like, fucking do something. It's here. Stop it. Stop talking. Stop. Picard, do something. Whatever you're going to do, it's too late. They're so calm as well. They're so calm with these options as the ship is coming right at them. And I guess that's what they're paid to do. But holy shit, it's painful. My really, really nitpicky thing is that Beverly is using a medical tricorder, not an engineering tricorder, to detect the noises. But I guess a medical tricorder can still record the noises. I just think an engineering one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wow, that is super, super nitpicky.
Yep.
So I'll go with this one that came in from the chat, that the tricorder in Crusher's medkit is just a sticker.
Aww.
It's not real.
No, I missed it. Oh no.
no.
Yeah, that makes they ran out of tricorders.
That's so sad.
When Beverly goes to Picard to get Aunt Adele's milk, she says about the voices that she's been hearing, and Picard says, "Well, we'll get engineering to run a systems check." I think as a doctor, Beverly should run a self-system check. Like, I think the first suggestion should be, maybe we scan you and then the ship. Like, I'm not disbelieving you, or maybe we do both at once. But no one ever once says, let's scan you just in case the voices are in your head.
Okay. So I gave props to this episode for not highlighting women as being
100%.
cuckoo bananas,
Yes.
and you're sitting the episode for not...
No, it doesn't have to be a woman. Anybody that brings this to Picard, it should be scan the ship, also scan you, just in case. Welcome to TVSins.
Wow.
The coffee is free on Thursdays.
Wow. And why wasn't there a saucer separation? Sorry.
There's no time for a saucer separation. Also, they just didn't like separating the saucer section after season 1, apparently, which is so fucking annoying. This is a weird one that we kind of mentioned in the show, but it is the fact that some of the scenes are markedly different in time. So in like the 5th loop, the poker game is condensed to seconds. Geordie turns up in sickbay way early. Like, they are, I get it, you have to do it for the episode, but it is weird that they're at different times. And the time between Picard saying, hey, Worf, activate the tractor beam, and Data doing the mental math of 3 pips.
It really did seem like it took a long time, didn't it?
The is not going to work. I guess I will vent the shuttle bay. It's happened. The ship's dead. It's done. Like, that gap is so jarring. It's so jarringly longer than all of the gaps in the previous loop. But I get it. Maybe this is just a manifestation of how quick Data's brain is working. They slow it down for TV. Fine.
Yeah, if they would have just slowed down.
Slow
Like, you slow it all down. So he was just I do like when we see him shuffle at the beginning of the episode, and then he's just like furiously hitting the panel.
Brent Spiner's physicality with the deck of cards and dealing it in that robotic manner, I know they speed it up, but I mean, even when he's dealing it to each person, he's such a great robot.
If that
so
is his
good.
hands.
Fair.
But still, a great robot.
Still. Whoever it was, great robot.
Chat points out, why not try both at once? Why don't we do the tractor beam and the shuttle bay all at the same time?
I've often thought that. Doing both. Why is it either or?
Why is it an either or situation?
Yeah. Especially since the tractor beam is at Worf's console and the shuttle bay thing was at Data's. So can't you just be like, yeah, both. Let's do it. Weird. It's also weird that Data is wrong. Like, he's the android. It's fucking stupid that Riker's idea, that he obviously just came up with on the fly, is worse than the android's idea, who should have done the calculations and the physics behind everything. Anything else, Ambassador?
No. I mean, obviously the chat is just hopping today and it was a lot of fun. But one of the things I loved the most is that A lot of the chat is something like along the lines of, this is my favorite episode, one of my favorite episodes, but it's got a lot of sins. And so it was nice to do.
Yeah.
We're going to have so many because it's time stuff.
Time travel. It's impossible for a reason. Like, it doesn't work. Love it. Well, next week, Ambassador, we continue our time travel series. Now, Cause and Effect had the most votes by a fair margin.
And again, we're not voting. It's just suggestions.
Had the most voices emailed in. It was suggested the most. The next episode that was suggested the most was actually a 3-way tie. So I'm going to let you pick where we head to next. Do we stay in TNG? Do we go to Deep Space Nine? Or do we go to Voyager? There is no wrong answer here. All 3 of them are really fun episodes.
Deep Space Nine.
Okay, let's go. Next week, we were doing Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 7, Little Green Men, for our next time travel episode. Until next week, you're going to love this episode, Deneé. I am confident you'll love this episode. Until then, thanks for joining us. I'm Captain Ian, and I have a nasty case of Nipah. Nipah.
And it's I don't know. There's so many. I don't know what to look for. I don't know what to say.
So many of the lines are repeated.
Yeah, right? And this is highly improbable for me.
And live long and Podsper.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod@cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
Check. Oh shit, I forgot to do the thing where I do look at the thing and then make sure that the thing is the thing that I'm supposed to have before the thing goes on, because look, it's obviously not the thing that it's supposed to be because it's really, 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 really quiet. Oh, but I really wanted to watch Survivor because she's so cute. Look at her with her little sock. Why yes, Ian, I'm going to come to the show with a donut and coffee in hand. 'Tis the only way to be. I was here first.
Whoa, why are you coming out of the wrong speaker? Fuck!
You can't stop me from coming out of whatever speaker I want to, beach.
Okay, I stopped it.
I said beach. Like, I didn't even say beach. I didn't say beach. I didn't say bitch. I said beach.
Got it. In the edit, you said bitch.
You're gonna make it sound like I said bitch?
Fuck yeah.
Bitch.
I have a Belgian bun ready to go.
What is that?
So that is, it's like a sweet bready thing, and then you put butter in the middle. It has icing on top and a cherry.
So it's like a cinnamon roll that you cut like a bagel.
It's like a cinnamon roll, but denser and no cinnamon.
So it's a cinnamonless bagel.
No, not as dense as a bagel. Somewhere in between.
Okay.
Like, it's very fluffy.
Next
but not
most important question.
Loose. Yes.
Why the fuck didn't you introduce me to those when I was in England?
Right, no, I every time I buy one I feel bad. Because I'm like,
good.
I know Deneé would enjoy this. Belgian buns, yeah, you would love the heck out of them.
There's an episode of What If that I watched. I think it's the 9th one, so like the final one in season 2, I think.
Yeah.
Nope. I think it's number 8.
The one where they go back in time?
Yeah, they're like in 1608 or whatever, or 1609, and Captain America, not Captain Carter, but Captain America is now Robin Hood.
Oh, that's a weird overlap.
Yeah, it was really strange. But the point is at one point he stops the carriage from coming through Nottingham Forest, and the person that he's robbing is Loki.
Of course.
And they take out this chest of goodies and they open it up and it's filled with like desserts. And the first thing that he says is Victoria Sponge.
Did you die?
I died. And every time I watched it, I had to watch it multiple times. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
And every time he says Victoria Sponge, I feel like I should pause it and just stop and remember back to one of my most favorite moments of my life. When my best friend and I arrived at your apartment and we walk in and you're like, oh yeah, my mom made this Victoria Sponge for you. And we had no idea what that even meant.
Yep. Totally normal. I was like, oh yeah, mum left a Victoria sponge. Yeah, that makes sense.
Honestly, first thought was that she went to the store and got us loofahs.
Yes, understandable.
Like a little washing loofah
They
for
were
the
literally
bathroom.
Victorian ones, so they erode the skin from your places. Yeah, really nasty. Yeah,
Yes.
my mum's great.
Or they're made of like lace.
Yeah. Oh, that's not gonna. Good for one use only.
It's like a
mildewy.
thing that you do when you're in England, though. You know.
Yeah. Famous for doing that.
Anyway, then you slide over this like cake,
Oh,
but it wasn't a cake.
Good.
It was
It's a
a
cake.
Victoria sponge, and there are some very serious differences. Number one, you can actually feel the individual grains of sugar.
Yes.
I had never experienced that before.
Yeah.
Usually it's like all melted in with the cake, and it's kind of like come out one unified, delicious blob of flavor that's like spongy.
That filling is raw. Most of it, like it's the. I don't think is there egg in it? There might be egg in it, but anyway, that filling doesn't get cooked. It's just this beautiful, creamy, vanilla-y, sugary beauty. I remember the first when I cut into it, the first slices were very neat. But when there was half left, we were just taking handfuls of it. Yum, yum.
It looked like we had like those little melon ballers. We're just like scooping it out.
Just hand me a fork. We're just going to get in there. It's so good. My mum could sell those cakes. So good.
A couple weeks later, we were at your mom's house, your mom and dad's house, and it was my best friend's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And so your mom baked another one for her. And we were like, yes!
Let's go! Best present ever!
We should have a cooking show where we just freak out about food.
Oh my goodness. Just make 10% of it is making the food. The other 90% is eating it.
And then just going into food coma. Anyway, I forgive you for the whole cherry bagel thing.
Oh, yeah, it's not a bagel.
I had Victoria sponge,
It's a Belgian
so
bun. It's a bun.
yeah.
I have been getting a lot of food shorts thrown at me, which I'm really happy for because there's some great recipes on there. But if I could give 1-star reviews to some videos, I would, because there's a certain type that pisses me off because it's doing literally the opposite of what it's supposed to do. And I found a great example today where the video starts off with, do you like this recipe? Well, I'm going to show you a really simple way to make it. Chop up your chicken, put it into a tray, and then he just starts throwing in seasoning. So there's no measurements, and there's no telling me what the seasoning is. And so many videos do this, where it just says, really quick, chicken tikka masala. And it will show the chicken getting prepped, and then just throw in one brown thing, one light brown thing, one red thing, one black thing. And I don't know what any of this thing is. If your intent is to teach me, at least put it up on screen what I'm supposed to be cooking with. All you're doing right now is showing me you can throw powder at chicken. This isn't impressive at all.
Quick question.
Yes.
Did you read the description of
I shouldn't have to read the description. The video should.
The description, man.
No.
You
How hard
click
is
the
it?
little
No.
thing
Fuck
and it
that.
opens it up
Fuck
and it's like,
that.
here it
That's
is, take a quick screenshot.
I'm young. No, that's not what this is about. No, this is not what I go to school for.
That's
No,
what you just got. You're pissed off.
Because I would go to the fucking internet and I would Google the fucking recipe. All I need them to say is 1 tablespoon of paprika, 2 tablespoons of cayenne pepper, 1 garam masala, whatever. It doesn't take... Instead of the shitty stock music that you're playing, tell me what you're putting on the chicken.
Okay, so super understand. Very valid in your anger. Although immediately, again, you just look at the... It's in the description.
Then just show me the finished product. Just say, here's the meal. Doesn't it look beautiful? Check the description for the ingredients. I don't need to see you throwing different coloured powders onto the chicken.
But that's what the algorithm likes, Ian.
Well, I'm going to train it to not.
Okay, so I decided I have 2 Instagram accounts. One is the one that I started up 2+ years ago for a public figure type thing where I'm not posting pictures that I don't want my friends and family to see. And then I have a personal one for my obviously keeping up with friends and family. However, I stopped using Instagram actively 2 years ago. And in the last 6 months, I've gone back to just open it up and see what it's about. The algorithm has no idea what to do with me. I'm like a baby deer.
Do you like this? Do you like this? like a puppy trying to find out what food it eats.
When Deneé said that Vosh was super chaotic, all I could think of was she had BDE, Big Deneé Energy. Yeah, that's fun.
There we go.
I like that. That makes me happy.
Nick, I will fight you on this. It's 17 days. It's not 100 years. They have been in the loop for the same amount of time. I am positive of it. And one day I will ask Brandon Braga. If I ever get to meet him, have to. That's the one question I would ask him, I think.
Yeah, sure. Me too. Absolutely. What a great use of time, because they haven't had that question asked them 1,000 times already.
Doesn't matter. First time I've asked it.
Who wins, Moopsie or the time loop? Time loop. Absolutely.
Yeah, time loop. Just ages Moopsie into nothingness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moopsie versus the endless buffet.
I missed that episode.
Moopsie
wins that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's like a buffet with bones in it.
Moopsie versus the Soyuz class.
Are you kidding? The Soyuz class took out the Enterprise D. Of course it wins. Bozeman wins.
Here's a question. What happened to the other ship and crew? Do we know?
We only know through like ancillary novels and stuff. They basically get reincorporated into Starfleet. And that's what happens. They don't go back to the past. They stay in the future.
Did they have the option to go back in the past though? Did that rift stay there?
No, I think the rift is, so what from the books, so there's a really cool series of books called the Typhon Pact, and they basically like make this entire area a no-go zone because of the temporal anomaly. So I think it's still there because then like the Romulans and Cardassians use it as a secret meeting place because they know no one's allowed to go there.
Oh, clever. Dangerous.
Yeah.
Super.
Great. I really like the Typhon Pact books.
CDR, Sin Data sandbagging Geordi by having a second scanning method that will work just fine for the luminosity studies.
Yeah, why did you let Geordi come to the fucking meeting if you've got your positron polarimeter that can just do the job?
Parallabombometers. Loobity-loo, 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 habba-doo, shoobity-woo. I think I can do it as a background. This is a great song, yeah? Are we going live?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Let's do it. Hello.
Hello.
Would you like to build a snowman?
No.
It doesn't have to be a snowman. Okay.